Today we are going to start a new governor, which is a different type governor what we discussed in the earlier, that is Hartnell governor. This governor differs from the previous governors, that is Watt, Porter and Prohl governor differs from this governor. The difference is in the previous governors, the loading is due to centrifugal force as well as self weight of the sleeve. Whereas the second category of the governors, when we categorized governors classification, we said spring loaded governors. Under that category, we have named different governors like Hartnell governor, Hartung governor, Wilson Hartnell governor, so on. So let us see the first category of the governor under spring loaded governor is a Hartnell type governor. First we will see the analysis and then we will solve a problem on Hartnell governor. We will see first the construction part of Hartnell governor and how this governor works, what are the various elements, what are the nomenclature associated to this, and then we will see the analysis part of Hartnell governor. Okay, so this is a spring loaded governor. Spring loaded. Okay, a spring loaded governor. Here we'll use a spring. Okay, we use a spring and that spring is placed initially under compression. Okay, you can see the diagram which is available on the right top corner, the construction part. The governor is like this, the spindle or the shaft which is connected to your prime mover by gearing arrangement is rotating with a certain speed. Okay, so that spindle is loaded with a spring. So a closed coiled or open coiled spring is placed with a spindle as a main element. Then on that we will place a the body. Okay, the sleeve is available in the bottom portion of the spindle and there are two bell crank levers placed on the left and right side of this sleeve. You can see the sleeve which is placed directly to the spindle is loaded with a spring and two bell crank levers are attached to the governor. The line diagram which is available here showing the bell crank levers are vertical in its nature. The bell crank levers are vertical in its nature. So the bell crank lever, vertical lever is A length and horizontal arm is B, or you can call mass where the fly ball is attached, that is a vertical arm, its length is A, and the other end where the roller is pressing or pushing the sleeve is called B. Okay, let me draw the just a simple line diagram of this Hartnell governor. Okay, there is a spring which is mounted on the spindle. This is spindle and there is a spring which is initially under compression. So number of turns are available for this spring. Okay. Then you have your sleeve, and this entire assembly is kept under a body. There is a nut which tightens for initial compression. So here you can see there is a sleeve. Okay, this is the spring, and this is the nut, and this is spindle. Okay, then you have two bell crank levers which are attached to the sleeve. This is the sleeve. So bell crank levers are placed like this. This is the ball end and this is the roller end. So this is ball end and this is the roller end. And we defined the parameters like this is A, okay, and this is B. And we define the radius of rotation R. So A is the vertical length of this bell crank lever, B is the horizontal length of this bell crank lever. So this is the bell crank lever. Bell crank lever. And this is the fulcrum point. This is the fulcrum point. This is the fulcrum point. Now, when this spindle is rotating, the entire assembly also rotates because there is a connection between, like the other end is also there. So the other end also you can show this side. Like this. So the entire assembly is revolving. That is, the entire governor is revolving. Let us assume if the speed is increased, then what happens? These bell crank levers are with the center of here fulcrum point. They will push the sleeve to the up. See, that means in that case, what happens when the speed increases? So the speed increased. So you can see this bell crank lever will, with this center, will shift it, and this will moves in the upward direction like this. Okay. And whereas when the speed decreases, then this bell crank lever will take the orientation like this. So this way the bell crank lever with this pivot point will move either outward or whether move in the inward. It can move either outward or it can move in the inward. So when it moves outward and inward, then it presses the sleeve, then the spring is either further compressed or the compression may be reduced, isn't it? So when the sleeve moves up or when the sleeve moves down, the spring force is either reduced or decreased, either reduced or increased. So these are the two extreme cases which are shown in the diagram in the bottom. One is speed reduction and another one is speed increase. So case 1, I have shown case 1, that is first case. This is the case 1. Case 1 is speed reduction and this is the case 2. So this is the case 2. So case 1 is lower speed. Case 1 is lower speed. Case 1 is lower speed and case 2 is the higher speed. Okay, we will see the analysis part. Okay, we will see the analysis part. First, let me tell you once again what is basically here we have discussed. Let us review once again. Here you can see this is the spindle and this spindle is connected to prime mover through gearing arrangement, and on this spindle we keep a spring and on this we will have a body which is connected to your sleeve, and here there is a bell crank lever, and bell crank lever two ends are like this. One end is connected to ball end. This is nothing but fly ball where the mass is M, force is mg. Okay, and here the sleeve mass also comes. Where it comes here, which is mg, okay, plus spring force Fs plus or minus F by 2. And what about centrifugal force? The centrifugal force which acts like this, F, and this is Fs. So I am using F for centrifugal force and Fs for spring force. Fs is for spring force and F is for centrifugal force. If I use like letter 1 and 2, it indicates one is lower speed, one indicates lower speed, and I represented 2 for higher speed. So two extreme positions, one is lower speed and another one is higher speed. So when the sleeve lifts up, okay, that is at higher speed. When the sleeve moves down, it is lower speed. So initially the spring is under compression. So when the speed increased means the spring force is further increased because it is compressing. So as you see the diagram, This is under some compression. When its speed increases, the fly ball tries to move away from the center, that is outward. Then this horizontal link of this bell crank lever will push the sleeve upward. When it pushes the sleeve upward, then the spring is further compressed. The spring is further compressed. So the spring force is increased. Whereas if the speed is dropped, then the sleeve is moving down, then the initial compression is relaxed. So the position which we have shown here is simply the spring at mean position. That means at that moment, the bell crank levers are vertical in its nature, the vertical arm and the horizontal arm is horizontal. Okay, so the analysis part will see that how we can find out different spring forces and what is obliquity effect of arms and how to calculate the stiffness of the spring required to perform this governor. Okay. Now let us see the two extreme positions which we have discussed, that is the lowest speed and highest speed positions. So as I said, I will indicate this is one, okay, that is lowest position, and this is the second one, highest position. Highest position. The nomenclature already I have stated. A and B. What is A and what is B? A is the length of the bell crank lever vertical arm. B is the length of the horizontal arm of the bell crank lever. R is the radius of rotation. Small m is the mass of the ball. Capital M is mass of the sleeve. F is centrifugal force and Fs is spring force. Okay, so these are the nomenclature. A, B, okay, R, then F, Fs. So A is length of bell crank lever vertical arm. Then B is length of bell crank lever horizontal arm. Then R is radius of rotation. F is centrifugal force. Fs is spring force. I use one for low speed and 2 number for high speed. So I will incorporate like R1, R2, F1, F2 and Fs1 and Fs2, that indicates at lower speed and higher speed. And one more thing, S is stiffness of spring. Stiffness of spring. Okay, so you can see on the right hand side the diagrams are shown, the free body diagram of the force analysis. So you have your axis of rotation, and you can take the vertical arm and horizontal arm of the bell crank lever, like this is the pivot point, this is the pivot point. So this is horizontal arm. When it moves down, then this is the vertical arm. So we defined this is A and this is B, and this is the fulcrum point, say A. Then your forces that acts self weight mg, and the centrifugal force F1, and here the spring force as well as the sleeve force, that is mg plus Fs1 plus F by 2. So I have taken the frictional force F, and Fs1 is the spring force at lower speed, and mg is the total mass of the sleeve. Half will be shared by this, another half will be shared by the other side of it, isn't it? Then one more thing is H, lift off sleeve. That is total lift off sleeve. That means how much this sleeve can be lifted up and down. That is what I call H, total one, isn't it? Now, so actually initially at mean position, this is the position. Okay, then it take an angle like this shift, angular shift. When it moves down, it makes an angular shift like this. So when it moves the angular shift, then this also makes the angular shift. Okay, then how much distance this has been moved from the initial position, which I will call as a C1, and how much vertical distance it has moved, I will call it as a H1. This is H1. So C1 is the vertical arm of the bell crank lever, how much it is traveled, and H1 is this horizontal arm, how much it has been moved in the downward, H1, isn't it? Then let us take the moments, okay, and write the equations. Now take moments at A. Okay, so this is A, then this perpendicular distance I denote it as a A1, and if this is B, this horizontal distance I call it as a B1. So actually this is A and this vertical distance is A1, and this is B, this horizontal distance is B1. Okay, like taking moments here, centrifugal force F1, okay, perpendicular distance A1, which is anti-clockwise, I will take it as a positive. Then let us see, mg is the self weight acting downwards, which is clockwise, so negative, minus mg perpendicular distance C1, then this part, that is, this is also anti-clockwise, negative, mg plus Fs1 plus F by 2 into, what is the perpendicular distance from this point? B1 is equated to 0. So let us keep your attention on this equation. moments are taken from A, the forces are three forces named as F1, mg plus Fs1 plus F by 2. So these forces causing the moments, that is F1 into A1, anti-clockwise moment taken as a positive, then mg self weight into perpendicular distance C1, then mg plus Fs1 plus F by 2 into this distance B1. So sum of the total is 0. Why I have taken F is positive? So the sleeve is moving down, okay, then the friction is up. When the sleeve is moving down, the friction is up. So the upward force, I will take it as a positive. That's why. So this is, the sleeve is moving down, the friction is in the opposite direction, which we take it as a plus F, isn't it? Now, rewrite this equation. F1 A1 is equal to mg C1 plus mg plus Fs1 plus F by 2 into B1. Okay. So, similar, if you write the second one, that is highest position, like, let me write, this is equation number 1. Highest position. Now, the ball will be moving this way. Okay. Then, this horizontal arm will be lifting up. This is, say, initially A, this is B, then these horizontal and vertical distances are B1 and A1. Now, the highest position, the arm, vertical arm moves like this and the horizontal arm lifts like this. Okay. Then this distance is called C2 and this distance is called H2. And this is B, then it's a projection, this is B2 and this projection is A2. The forces are concerned here, the self weight mg, then the centrifugal force F2, then here mg plus Fs2 plus F by 2. So the difference here and here is, in the case 1, the ball goes like inside and this, the fly ball comes in the outside. So in place of F1 we get F2, then in place of Fs1 we get Fs2, that is the difference. Then this becomes C2 and this becomes H2, isn't it? So whatever this angle this makes, and the same angle is made by here, because this is a single link. This link simply shifts its position, but it will not cause any change of the angle with the horizontal and verticals are concerned. Now, once again, if you write equilibrium condition, we'll get taking moments at A, F2, A2, F2, A2, directly I am writing F2, A2 is equal to, this is mg, so F2 anti-clockwise, mg also anti-clockwise, and whereas this is clockwise, okay, if I take it on the right side, so this becomes negative and this becomes positive, that is mg plus fs2 plus f by 2 into b2 minus mg, okay, into c2. This is the equation number 2. So what I did is, I have taken moments at A, F2 into A2, that is anti-clockwise taken as a positive, and this is also anti-clockwise mg, but if I take it on the right hand side, it becomes minus mg c2, and this is mg plus fs2 plus f by 2 into the horizontal distance of b2. Okay, now this analysis, what I did, I have considered obliquity effect of arms. So I have considered obliquity effect of arms. Obliquity is considered. Obliquity is considered. Okay, that means I have taken A1, A2, B1, B2 separately. Okay, and C1, C2 separately. Okay, there is another case where we can neglect the obliquity. Neglect obliquity. What is this obliquity neglecting is, if you assume A1 is equal to A2 is equal to A, then B1 is equal to B2 is equal to B, and C1 is equal to C2 is equal to 0. Okay, that is what we call neglecting the obliquity effect of the arms. So let me repeat once again, what is obliquity effect? Obliquity is the change of its position, like A2, A1, B2, B1, those distances, if you consider, those are called obliquity consideration. Neglecting obliquity means whether it moves inward or outward. If you neglect the distances that changes, like A1, A2, B1, B2 like this, then that is called obliquity effect neglecting, and C1 is equal to C2 is equal to 0. So this is what we call neglecting obliquity. Suppose in the problem, if we ask consider obliquity, then you do your analysis with the above notation. Suppose if it is not asked, then always we prefer to take this case, that is obliquity is simply neglected. That means A1 is equal to A2 is equal to A, B1 is equal to B2 is equal to B, C1 is equal to C2 is equal to 0. So if I write this way, how these equations will change and how we can find out the stiffness of the spring required, okay, that we will see. If you neglect the obliquity effect of arms, okay, your A1 is equal to A2 is equal to A, B1 is equal to B2 is equal to B, C1 is equal to C2 is equal to 0. Then your equation number 1 and 2 will change like this. That is F1A is equal to half mg plus fs1 into b, because the second part, what is mg into c1, where c1 is 0, then that value becomes 0. So by writing your C1 is 0, C2 is 0, equation 1 will be converted like this. Then equation 2 will convert like F2A is equal to half into mg, okay, plus Fs2, of course, F is there, no? Into B. This is equation number 4. So, what I did, I have simply taken like A1 is equal to A2 is equal to A, B1 is equal to B2 is equal to B, C1 is equal to C2 is equal to 0. Then my equations will convert like F1A is equal to half into mg plus Fs1 plus F into B, like half into mg into Fs2 plus F into B. So if I write like equation 4 minus equation 3, that means F2 minus F1 into A is equal to, this is Fs2 minus Fs1, okay, into B by 2. So equation 4 minus 3, that is F2 minus F1 into A is equal to Fs2 minus Fs1 into B by 2. So I can write Fs2 minus Fs1 is equal to 2A by B. So Fs2 minus Fs1 is 2A by B into F2 minus F1. So this is an equation number, say 5. What is this equation represents? The change of spring force, that is from the position 2 to position 1, is equal to 2A by B into F2 minus F1. So let us rewrite this like this. So we said H is lift. H is lift. And we also defined S is stiffness of spring. S is stiffness of spring and H is the lift. So what is the change of spring force? That is nothing but lift into stiffness of the spring. That is spring force difference is total lift into stiffness of the spring, S. So Fs2 minus Fs1 is equal to H into S. What is Fs2 minus Fs1? That is equal to, already available with us, 2A by B into F2 minus F1. So change of spring force is nothing but lift of the sleeve into stiffness of the spring. This is also equal to 2A by B into F2 minus F1. So how we can write this once again? Let us see. What is this H? H is lift of the sleeve. That is also can be written like this. Let us see. This is the position of two extreme positions. This we defined H. That is position 2, position this is position 1, this is position 2. When it moves position 1 to 2, it lifts an amount of h. Okay, and if you consider this angle as a theta, total angle, and if you take this horizontal arm is b, so for a small angular displacements, we can write this is r theta like a sector. Okay, this b theta will become h. B theta will become h, isn't it? Okay, this is height. This sector length can be taken as a small distance where a sector radius is b and the angle is theta. B theta is equal to h. So this I can replace it like this. B theta, h place here, b theta I will write. Then this is h place, I will write b theta into s is equal to 2a by b into f2 minus f1. So what I did is the lift of the sleeve from the mean position bottom as well as the top total is h. The angular displacement is theta. Then this horizontal lever is b. Then b theta is equal to h. So that b theta part h has been replaced. B theta into s is equal to 2a by b into f2 minus f1. So similar way we can also see what is the position of this radius. This is r1 and this is r2. So when this moves like h and this moves the vertical arm like r2 minus r1, okay, and this is also theta, this is also theta. So we can also write here like a theta, this is r2 minus r1. A is the vertical arm length, theta is the angular position. The position of this ball moves from 1 to 2, the difference is r2 minus r1, which is equal to a theta. So we can also write a theta is equal to r2 minus r1, or we can write theta is equal to r2 minus r1 by a. Theta is equal to r2 minus r1 by a. So I will substitute this theta value in the above equation. Say this is equation number 6. So theta is substituted in equation 6. So if you substitute this value here, that is b into, so what is it, b into r2 minus r1 by a. So here I will write so here I will take the value of this theta here, b into theta, what is r2 minus r1 by a, okay, into s is equal to 2a by b into f2 minus f1. what I did, I have taken this theta value B into R2 minus R1 by A into S is equal to A by B. So from here I can calculate S is equal to 2A square by B square. So A into A square, B into B square, then F2 minus F1 by R2 minus R1. So this is the final equation I require. So equation number, how much we have named it up to here, 6. This is the 7th one. Equation 7th one. So finally what I will get, S is equal to 2A square by B square into F2 minus F1 by R2 minus R1. Okay, so that indicates the stiffness of the spring is a function of the vertical arm of the bell crank lever and horizontal arm of the bell crank lever lengths, and the centrifugal forces of like F2, F1 and the radius of rotation of R2, R1 is a function. Okay, so with this information we can solve the problems. This is neglecting obliquity effect of arms, that is A1 is equal to A2 is equal to A, B1 is equal to B2 is equal to B, and where C1 is equal to C2 is equal to 0. So the final answer which we derived here, the stiffness of the spring S is equal to 2A square by B square into F2 minus F1 by R2 minus R1. Okay, then we'll see problems in the next lecture.